Released now, and more than 50,000 people have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began. That's according to the territory's Hamas-run health ministry. The statistics issued at midday on Sunday also reported that 41 people had been killed in the past 24 hours. It came as the Israeli army launched a ground offensive in southern Gaza. The Israelis have blamed Hamas for abandoning the ceasefire, which had been in place since January. Meanwhile, Hamas says one of its senior leaders has been killed by an Israeli airstrike in southern Gaza. Salah al-Baradawi was killed in Khan Yunis in the early hours of Sunday. Israel has not yet commented on the strike. He was the vice chair of the Hamas Political Bureau and had previously acted as a spokesperson for the group. Well, our Middle East correspondent Amir Nada is in Jerusalem and updated us on those figures that have been released by the Hamas-run health authority.
It's a bleak milestone in this war. We don't have a breakdown of those figures, but we know from previous reports that around two-thirds of those who've been killed in the 17-month war in Gaza have been women and children. The figures don't also break down the number of fighters versus civilians, but what we do know is that many bodies, including the United Nations, believe that these figures issued by the local health ministry in Gaza are considered reliable. A report of the number of bodies brought into hospitals and deaths counted by local health officials, and at times the health officials there have issued lists of all of those who've been recorded dead, including their names and ID numbers. On the Israeli side, we have heard accusations before from Israel of Hamas inflating or exaggerating the figures. Israel has claimed that it's killed around 17,000 Hamas fighters, though it hasn't released its own methodology or data. But we have also seen some experts who've said that the figures issued by the health authorities in Gaza may indeed be a huge undercount, pointing to the fact that the health sector in Gaza has been massively debilitated. There's been many hospitals have closed down, so the ability for hospitals to register deaths has been massively debilitated throughout the war. And also some bodies like the United Nations have suggested that there may be at least 10,000 people who've died, who've been killed, who are trapped under the rubble of bodies, under the rubble of buildings, and emergency services there haven't been able to retrieve them and indeed register them. So yes, not an exact science, the counting, but indeed the best figures we have, and gives us pause to think about the past 17 months of war.
Well, Dr. Mohammed Abu Mughasib is the Deputy Medical Coordinator for the MSF. He described what he was witnessing on the ground in Al-Mawasi in Gaza.
There is a ground operation in Rafah, which is close to Mawasi, so we can hear shooting from time to time and heavy shelling. We can see as well displaced people from Rafah coming to Al-Mawasi. You know, there's hundreds of people coming from this area, which is under evacuation order. And they are coming to Mawasi and trying to find a place to shelter.
And what forms of shelter are there at the moment?
Unfortunately, they have, nothing. They took the people who went actually to Rafah, Tel Sultan back during the ceasefire. They took their tents. They removed their tents from Al-Mawasi and they went back to Rafah. So now they were obliged to evacuate Rafah without anything. So they left their tents, their mattresses. So they are just without nothing. They're just their personal belongings with them.
And you've been talking to them. How do they feel at the moment?
The people are really exhausted. The population all are exhausted in Gaza. They are, the situation since more than 500 days, under severe tense airstrikes, bombing. There are evacuation orders since the beginning of the war. They are moving from one place to another. There is blockage on the humanitarian aids. There is the